So it's been a while. We're doing G.I. Jonesing. We're reading through all the G.I. Joe comics in order. It's been a while since our last G.I. Jonesing installment. We talked about issue 3. I've been looking all over for my copy of issue 4. I still can't find it. So I was at the store and I saw they had the Tales of G.I. Joe reprint. So I just thought, okay, it was $3. So I bought this. So now we're ready to go. So great cover.
That's cover.
And this cover is like sort of poster worthy. The story could be anything.
Yeah.
And so you open it up and you get this guy. I'm not sold on this look. Like that mustache is a little too like parodic. Although this mustache is incredibly ridiculous back then, but it kind of became in style like maybe 15, 20 years ago.
I thought it was like who was that, like the Cobra guy with like a monocle? And I thought it was that guy.
Right, Dr. Mindbender. But maybe, when they were designing villains, they might have taken a cue from this because Dr. Mindbender comes much later.
Wow.
So maybe they took a cue from, because it is kind of like you just take away one of these lenses and you got the monocle. The other thing I want to note is this really cool Captain Power. We'll have to do a Captain Power episode.
Dude, my friend...
I was obsessed with Captain Power. That might be the last toy line I got into was Captain Power.
My buddy Brian's brother had a whole line of Captain Power stuff. We would watch the VHS without the toys.
Yeah, sure.
We would just put it in and like
Looks
watch.
super cool. Yeah, I've watched them recently. They're not bad at all. But yeah, we were in another episode we were talking about like, what was the last toy line that you kind of collected and stuff, and maybe Captain Power was it for me. And yeah, I just, that gimmick, I was like, I want to do that. I want to shoot
the
lasers at my TV. And what a great looking ship too.
So awesome.
That's an amazing ship. I wanted that ship so bad, but we'd go everywhere under the sun. You could not find it anywhere. And so then, my dad took me to Toys R Us. It was like maybe the 5th or 6th toy store we went to, and they didn't have it there either. So I was like, I felt bad for making my dad drag me all over creation. So I was like, okay, I'll take. So I took the Lord Dread ship, which is actually a pretty cool ship in its own right. But I wanted the Captain Power ship. But the Lord Dread was my ship. I would watch the show and shoot at the screen, and I had a videotape. I'd shoot at that too. But never got this up until recently. Like just a couple months ago, I was like, let me settle some scores. Let me have some closure.
Hell yeah.
I finally bought the PowerJet XT7.
Oh my god.
It doesn't disappoint. It's pretty great.
We got to do a whole Captain Power episode.
Operation Wingfield. This is, Larry Hama wrote the script. Herb Trimpe did the plot and art. And then inks by John D'Agostino and Jack Abel, George Rousseau doing the colors, Diana Albert doing the letters, Tom DeFalco editor, Jim Shooter commander. It hasn't been codified at this point of like what that sort of credit means. Larry Hama script, Herb Trimpe plot and art. Sounds like it could mean that like Herb Trimpe plotted out this story in artwork, came up with the story first, and then handed it to Larry Hama, and Larry Hama dialogued it. That could be what it is. Or it could be that Larry Hama co-plotted it, like that they had like a bullshit session, or like they talked it out between them, and then Herb Trimpe went off and drew it, and then Larry Hama, put in the words. So it's
they could take.
Yeah, it could be either of those. It's not, but because this attribution, it's not like, it would be better spelled out if it were sort of like script and plot by Larry Hama, plot and again, but who knows? But I mean, both of those guys were instrumental part of G.I. Joe from the beginning.
This plot, Tom, it's pretty bones. Like we're 4 issues in, and they're dealing with like a mountain militia. Like,
yeah,
that's
it is interesting.
It's
like a little
wild.
It's a little more. It's a little more like removed from the sort of, sort of like pie in the sky sci-fi fantasy thing of like Cobra, where they're kind of, it's kind of like super villainy kind of stuff. It's like a cult. It's like a right-wing cult. Probably pulled from the headlines of that time. Could be pulled from the headlines now.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And again, like Cobra does eventually figure into the plot. They get mentioned, but they never show. You never see them.
Yeah,
and maybe
they're funding them.
Maybe that's like an after the fact dialogue
yeah.
addition that might not have been there from the very beginning, because it does feel like a sort of change of pace issue. Like, okay, we've dealt with Cobra for the first couple issues. It's really well told. Like, again, the having that kind of plot in sort of a kid's comic is pretty cool. But it's really well. And then there's this sequence here where they're zooming in on this guy, and then you see that Colonel Hawk in front, and so they're like watching like a film strip, or they're watching a projection.
That was a really cool reveal.
Yeah. Early 80s, late 70s, this was like a trope. You know, you watch Enter the Dragon, you watch Matt Houston, you watch like any of these like shows and stuff. There'd always be like a sequence at the beginning of the episode where they're watching like a slideshow of like, okay, here's the villain, and here's his associates, here's his...
I love getting a dossier. Like, somebody gives like a file and my picture in black and white is like paper clipped inside it.
So they got to infiltrate this place. You know, this guy's outfit, it looks almost like it's designed to be a disguise, like that the mustache comes off. And
it's with the design of their costumes, it's like, here's a dated reference. Instead of going postal, these are like deranged UPS drivers.
And they're called Strike First, and they have like this little symbol of like a mushroom cloud. The G.I. Joe team's going to infiltrate, and so you have another cool transition where, you know, Hawk's there, and then now he's in his like civilian outfit as like a new recruit for this thing, and they make you bring your family with you, so it is like a cult. It's like completely a cult, a militarized cult.
And I like how throughout their undercover operation that they're like, don't be so badass.
Right, yeah, you're looking a little too good, yeah. Because they got to pretend to be like raw recruits, not the best of the best, which the G.I. Joe team is. Now these, reading these old issues, they do bring back memories for me, because I was reading a lot of this stuff, most of it for the first time when I was working on Transformers versus G.I. Joe. And I remember like taking some of the moments from this and using them as like a training scene of like where they're training for like robot combat and stuff. So it is like this takes me back to like, oh yeah, I remember reading this stuff. And then this is like the issue where Snake Eyes goes from being like an ensemble member to sort of coming forward a little.
So badass in this issue, Tom.
Like he's skulking around, sneaking around, kind of, you know, pulling some focus. And he's writing, like, he doesn't speak, but this is comics, a visual medium, a medium of words and pictures. So he can like write down his thoughts in his little journal, and they're kind of handwritten. And that was another thing I sort of took for Transformers versus G.I. Joe in the movie adaptation. There's like some sequences where I have Snake Eyes writing letters to his sister back home with like a handwriting thing. So that was pulled from this. But yeah, he just looks great. We're getting closer to, I mean, it's many issues after this, but to that like silent interlude where it's like, let's just see Snake Eyes sneaking around, doing like ninja stuff, doing commando stuff.
It was shocking when my jaw dropped when I uncovered that they had a nuke.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I can learn some stuff from Snake Eyes. He was like, I'm gonna count like the sections of fence to remember where to like sneak in. Mm-hmm. And his like, and I'm like, wow, Snake Eyes knows exactly where to sneak into the compound.
And I think Grunt is the other guy who's there with Hawk.
Oh yeah,
Hawk and Grunt are the two guys who are there, and then Snake Eyes is like their guardian angel, kind of like sneaking around up above, and yeah, this is what you want to see. Like you want, it's like it's so more good. Of this guy. Like that's how good. But all these issues in like what it really has been so far all along is just these really great thrillers.
Oh yeah.
Like any of these issues you could adapt into like the G.I. Joe movie.
It'd be incredible.
Yeah, especially back then, because like I feel like you could do this with 80s special effects, an 80s budget, you know? I feel like you could really pull this off. This cult, they want to try to start World War III. They want to steal a nuke and make it go off, I guess, in like Russia, and then have Russia do a retaliatory strike against America, and then start World War III. And then they have a backup plan where if that doesn't work, they're going to nuke themselves in Montana, and then make it look like it was the Soviets, and then the U.S. is going to have to launch it. So it's like this really crazy, like effed up.
I like that. He's like, they must have had a sale on tanks at the Cobra job lot.
I feel like, you know, somebody along the way, whether it was Larry, or whether it was Jim Shooter or somebody along the way, or Tom DeFalco, somebody was like, okay, let's tie it back in with the ongoing thing. Let's tie it in with Cobra. But I feel like it didn't necessarily start there.
No, because like the Cobra insertion kind of like takes like a little bit of the like edge off it a little bit.
You're right.
It lightens it a little bit.
It takes a little of the edge off it. But conversely, like from my point of view, like, and again, when I was reading this stuff as like research for Transformers versus G.I. Joe, I always appreciated when stuff was part of the overall arc.
Me too. No,
so it was like nice,
I'm glad it's in there, but I can see why they put it in there.
Yeah, but also, like you said, the story does have a little more edge. Like that could have been a formula for G.I. Joe, for the G.I. Joe comics, where it's like, okay, mostly we're gonna fight Cobra, but every now and then we're gonna have something that's a little more real world, a little more, like just as like a change of pace. Like I could see either of those working. Like when they're running around the track and stuff, it's like, yeah, you're doing too good. We gotta slow it down, but they're still in the lead.
I always love a good outline of binoculars.
They get found out.
Oh my god, I love Snake Eyes getting that radio operator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fight's going. Yes, Snake Eyes is like seeing Snake Eyes skulk is like,
God, it's good.
Yeah, it eventually becomes like that becomes the whole comic. They're fighting, but even like two G.I. Joes, best of the best, eventually get subdued by like superior numbers.
I was like, did he use one hand? No, he used two. He got the guy by his face.
Let's get down to some serious knuckle
dusting. I remember that.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna use that.
Like, I guess like the fact that like there's not a scene where like somebody takes off their mask and it's Cobra Commander is kind of what makes me think that this was originally intended just to be like a standalone adventure with like some real. They're taking Hawk and Grunt out to be executed, and it's like pretty grim. They have the hole ready, like they're gonna like stick them in the pool or something, and then Snake Eyes to the rescue.
Out of the
tree.
tree.
How great is that? The plane's taken off with the nuke. They gotta chase it down. There's a pretty cool shootout. Snake Eyes is like hanging from the roof. And then Hawk gets into the plane. It's like, man, this is like some great
awesome.
action.
You get some air combat here at the end. Very surprising and cool.
Yeah, so he's getting ready to like he has to catch up with the nuke, the plane with the nuke, and shoot it down, I guess, without activating it, and then shoots it down. It's just really great stuff.
And I like how he still is like, even though he's shooting it down, he doesn't want the pilot to die. He's like, jump, Carruthers.
Yeah, that is a cool moment. Jump, Carruthers, jump. And looks like Carruthers didn't jump.
No.
But yeah,
he's in Davy Jones's locker.
Yeah, great moment. I wonder if that was also like editorial, like, okay, it's still a Marvel comic. You can't be like, yeah, fuck you, Carruthers.
He's like, die screaming, motherfucker. Yeah. He's like, choke on that.
He's still like the ongoing sort of hero character in a Marvel comic. So
he does like a MacGruber thing. He's like, Carruthers, dead at the age of who fucking cares?
Like, we're not at that point yet. We're not at that point yet in sort of like 80s history or Marvel toy history. And so then now with Plan A done, now they're going to initiate Plan B and set off this nuke that's going to kill everybody there. And women and children, like the families and the
vaporized.
Yeah, and so he's getting ready to to shoot anybody who doesn't who's gonna leave or doesn't like it. And then his wife pulls out a gun, and it's got this great like cross-cutting kind of suspenseful scene, and then she shoots him in the back as the G.I. Joe team shows up. Great sort of classic shot there. We got Stalker in the front, and then she kind of explains like, yeah, he was going too far. He was taking it too far, and now the nuke is still set to go. They got to defuse it. Another classic 80s thing. Like, how many shows had where like the red wire or the blue wire? Having watched Oppenheimer not too long ago, it is kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of how there's like this little globe inside.
I'm like, U-235. That means uranium.
Right. So Snake Eyes is helping. Is that Zap?
I love that shot of them like gingerly lifting that lid there.
Grunt has to hold it while Zap is like sort of cutting the supports and stuff. Again, really
what a
great
look.
composition. Yeah, very tense, sweaty brow, and then they succeed. They did it because they're a team. they succeeded. And then there's a little bit of extra like little irony at the end that like, oh, by the way, the countdown clock was deceptive. You actually had like one more second. So nice, it tightens up. And then
interesting ending.
Great final panel as this like pickup truck.
Is that Uncle Jesse from the Dukes of Hazzard?
It's like, yeah, exactly.
Sanford and Son.
This guy says, "Sheesh, I'll bet those locals are sure glad we were on the job." Well, Clem, looks like they moving in some real soldier boys up to the old Wingfield place. Yep, liquor prices are gonna go up, and the sheriff will be setting his speed trap again. Best be keeping a close eye on your women folk too,
if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So it's like so great. What a great ending, and it's like Larry Hama and Herb Trimpe, two vets, two guys who were in the military, saw combat in Vietnam, and they're not like sugarcoating anything. They're like, if you have an army base show up in your town. Yeah. You're gonna hide your girls, hide your women, and
hide your liquor,
or hide your liquor, or jack up the prices of your liquor. Because your bars are gonna be.
Uncle Jesse, which was the blonde? Who was the blonde Duke brother? I can't remember.
Bo Duke.
Bo Duke. He's Bo Duke driving.
And then next issue, Tanks for the Memories. That's going to be a good one. I mean, this one's pretty great.
Oh, look at this cover.
Yeah, the next issue's great. It's got a real star turn for General Flagg, who up to this point is kind of like a cipher. He's almost like a non-character. He gets some cool moments in the next one.
We should pair that with a Tommy Lee Jones action movie from the 80s called The Park Is Mine.
Nice. That's great. You know what? I mean, what year is 1985? So I think this predates that. But
isn't that amazing?
That's like spot fucking on.
We should watch The Park Is Mine.
That is spot fucking on. Good call there, Matt. Good call. Like this ad here, the Pitt.
Oh my God.
Now it's a nuke going off in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is decimated. Do you know the story behind this?
No.
If you live in Pittsburgh, get out now.
What the
while
heck?
You still can. Now what this is, The Pitt, a new universe bookshelf format special edition by John Byrne, Mark Greenwald, Sal Buscema, and Stan Drake, on sale December for Marvel. Now here's what happened. Now Jim Shooter, this is a reprint. So by the time this reprint came out, Jim Shooter was no longer the editor-in-chief at Marvel. He was gone from Marvel. Now, while Jim Shooter was there, he created a thing called the New Universe, where it was going to be the new Marvel universe, and it was going to be all new characters and all new universe. And instead of being centered around New York, it was centered around Pittsburgh, because Jim Shooter's from Pittsburgh. So he thought, hey, I'll make the center of this new universe, I'll make it Pittsburgh. How cool is that? Now, a few years later, Jim Shooter is out at Marvel. A lot of people didn't like him. They were happy to see him go. And so first order of business in Jim Shooter's new universe, which is centered around Pittsburgh, is to nuke Pittsburgh as like the ultimate fuck you. So that I thought you'd get a kick. I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
It's a full-page spread.
Full-page spread. Like the whole point of this thing is to like just a big F you.
It's like taking a big full-page ad on Variety to like shit on someone.
Yeah, so that I thought you'd like that.
That's hilarious.
Cool Forgotten Realms.
That's a nice
ad on the back. But anyway, I'm glad that G.I. Jonesing is back. We are so this is issue 4. We're going into issue 5. We are so early in this G.I. Joe journey.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, this is one of the best comic books I've ever read. Is the G.I. Joe series, and it just gets better from here. Like it starts out so good, it only gets better, and it's good. It's like firing on all cylinders for like 50 or 60 issues, and then by the time it gets to issue 100, it's still good. Like it kind of reaches its peak after like 50 or 60 issues, but issue 100 still good, and then as it goes on, it kind of loses its way here and there.
Yeah.
But then has an amazing final issue. So it's just like a fun journey all the way through.
There's still really so much ahead of us.
So much ahead of us. When I was doing Transformers versus G.I. Joe, I'd see like this. I started getting kind of like excited about this era of G.I. Joe. It's like, okay, like eventually we're gonna get to the sort of flamboyant era that I knew of, like Duke and Roadblock and all that kind of stuff. But I want to spend a little bit of time with this, like, prehistoric iteration of G.I. Joe, where it's just a bunch of guys in green outfits and then, like, Snake Eyes and Scarlet. You know what I mean?
Yes, and, like, Snake Eyes creeping around put me at ease. I was like, thank God he's, like, on the roof of a building.
You
or
feel
like,
safe
with Snake Eyes. I'm like, they're in good hands because he's slinking around on the edge of camp and stuff.
So this was a lot of fun. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, a new series from IDW. The first issue is on sale in October. Tell your local comics retailer to set aside a copy for you.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And we'll see you next time for more G.I. Jonesing.